Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. I think this one today is, well, it's going to be particularly interesting for our audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, considering the kind of folks who tune in, I have a feeling this is a topic they've probably bumped into a few times, in different ways.
Right, right.
But we're not just going to rehash the basics here. We're going deep.
Absolutely a deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. Into flow, that feeling of being completely in the zone, totally absorbed in what you're doing.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at it through a very specific lens.
Exactly. And that lens is action and adventure sports.
Yeah, because, I mean, think about it. Those athletes, they're operating at the very edge of what's humanly possible.
Right. Pushing limits constantly.
And to do that, they have to tap into flow
Hmm.
in ways that most of us, we don't have to on a daily basis.
Right, exactly. It's not just about performance for them. A lot of times it's straight up about survival.
Exactly. Survival.
So our main source material for this deep dive is going to be Stephen Kotler's book, The Rise of Superman.
Fantastic book.
Yeah, he's done some really incredible work on this, on decoding the science of these almost superhuman feats.
I mean, decoding what makes these people tick.
Yeah, and the stories he tells are just wild.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so what we're going to try to do today is break down the science, the psychology, all the stuff that makes flow tick.
Mm-hmm.
Not just what it feels like,
Yeah.
but, what triggers it, what's actually happening in the brain.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and the big question, the really fascinating one is, can we learn to cultivate flow intentionally?
And use that
Yeah.
to achieve mastery in, whatever we're passionate about.
Exactly. That's the goal here. So to start us off, I think we got to go back to the OG of flow research, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Ah, yes, the man himself
He was the one who really put this concept on the map,
defined it.
defined it exactly. He described flow as that state of total absorption where you're so focused, so energized and enjoying what you're doing that you kind of lose yourself in it.
It's like the sense of self melts away, and all that's left is the activity.
Right. And I think what makes flow so relevant, especially for, our listeners who are already pretty high achieving, is that it's not just some feel-good concept.
No, it has real world implications.
Big time.
Yeah.
Kotler brings up this Gallup survey that showed a huge chunk of American workers, like 71%, they're not engaged at work.
Wow, 71%.
Yeah, it's a staggering number.
Disengaged.
Totally. And then you contrast that with the research on happiness at work, and it's like night and day.
Right, like that CNN report that showed happier employees mean more sales, higher productivity, even greater accuracy.
It's wild. So it really makes you wonder, why aren't more people tapping into this flow state if it's so beneficial?
Right, like what's holding us back from accessing this incredible resource?
And this ties into Maslow's idea of peak experiences, those moments of pure joy and fulfillment where you feel like you're operating at your absolute best.
Yeah, those transcendent moments that really show us what we're capable of.
And flow definitely seems like a pathway to those kinds of experiences.
Absolutely a direct line to those peak states.
But here's the thing that I find so interesting about studying flow in action and adventure sports.
What's that?
It's not optional for these guys. It's like a necessity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about big wave surfers, rock climbers,
Yeah.
base jumpers. These are people who are literally risking their lives.
And to do that successfully, to navigate those situations, they have to be in flow.
There's no room for error, hesitation, doubt.
So does that mean like the flow state they're accessing is different somehow?
That's the big question, isn't it? Does the intensity of the situation actually change the nature of the flow?
Yeah, because we can't replicate those life or death stakes in a lab,
No, not ethically anyway.
Right. But Kotler, he introduces us to these amazing individuals who kind of embody this idea of flow under pressure. And one of the first guys he talks about is Shane McConkey.
Ah, McConkey, a legend.
Oh, total legend. Kotler calls him a dual sport master of the impossible.
Which is pretty accurate when you think about what he accomplished.
Back in '93, he was doing near double backflips off 40-foot cornices.
I mean, nobody was doing that stuff back then.
No, it was unheard of. It makes you wonder, like, how do you even conceive of those kinds of moves, let alone pull them off?
It's like he had this intuitive understanding of what was possible in that moment.
Right. And the influence he had on both skiing and skydiving is huge.
Oh, yeah, he changed the game completely.
Yeah.
His innovations, his style. It all came from that willingness to push boundaries, to find new lines.
And I bet flow played a huge role in that, being able to access that creative space under pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just think your way through those kinds of moves. You have to feel them.
Right. You have to be completely immersed in the moment.
And then there's Danny Way.
Oh man, Danny Way, talk about pushing limits.
Jumping the Great Wall of China on a skateboard.
With a fractured ankle.
Fractured ankle, I mean, come on.
Insane. And he's admitted he's afraid of heights.
Yeah, so it wasn't just the physical challenge, it was the mental hurdle, too.
Totally. And then he goes and competes at the X Games later that year.
Still injured, right.
Yep, it's another ankle injury.
And he lands a backflip.
It's like his mind was so focused, so locked in that the pain, the fear, it all just faded away.
It's like the flow state allowed him to transcend those limitations.
And it's not just anecdotal. There's actual scientific evidence for these kinds of altered states under duress.
Right, like Albert Heim's research.
Yeah, he was a scientist who had this near-fatal fall in the Alps.
A scientist having a mystical experience, basically.
Exactly. And as he was falling, he reported all these crazy things like panoramic vision time slowing down and a total lack of fears.
Classic flow state stuff, right?
Yeah, but what's really interesting is that he went on to survey other people who'd survived similar falls.
And they reported the same things.
Exactly the same experiences, which suggests that there's something objective happening in the brain under those conditions.
It's like the brain flips a switch and enters this different mode of processing reality.
And this actually connects back to William James's work on mystical experiences and how they can enhance performance in life-threatening situations.
Right? It's like there's this untapped potential within us
Yeah.
that gets activated when the stakes are high.
And then you have Laird Hamilton at Teahupoo.
Oh, man. Teahupoo, one of the heaviest waves in the world.
Yeah, waves over 25 feet, they were considered unrideable.
Until Laird came along.
Right. He pioneered tow surfing, which allowed surfers to catch these massive waves.
Totally revolutionized the sport.
But it was his backhand drag on the Millennium Wave that really blew everyone's minds.
That was pure improvisation.
Yeah. Yeah, he couldn't have planned that maneuver beforehand. It was like his brain operating in flow came up with this brand new technique in the moment.
Like a spontaneous creative breakthrough.
And the way he describes the experience is so fascinating. He talks about it being timeless, pure,
Yeah, completely immersed in the moment.
It highlights how flow can not only enhance our existing skills, but also unlock entirely new ways of thinking and problem solving.
And then there's Dean Potter, the climber and base jumper.
Yeah. Dean Potter, he was obsessed with finding this psychic connection to the universe through these extreme activities.
He was pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible in both climbing and base jumping.
And he had this crazy experience in the Cellar of Swallows in Mexico.
Deep underground, right?
Yeah, it's this massive cave, and he jumped from the top. His parachute deployed asymmetrically, and he started spinning uncontrollably.
Sounds terrifying.
It was. But in that moment, he described his senses being heightened. Time seemed to slow down.
Classic flow state again.
And he had this sudden insight, this connection between a glowing orange image and the climbing rope that allowed him to correct the spin and land safely.
Wow. So in a life or death situation, his brain made this connection that saved his life.
Exactly. It's like those extreme moments can trigger these profound intuitive leaps.
So we've got all these incredible examples of flow in action, but what's going on in the brain when this happens?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. And thankfully, there's been some research that sheds light on this.
Yeah, like Leslie Sherlin's work with elite athletes.
He looked at their brainwave patterns during decision-making in high-pressure situations.
And what did he find?
Well, he observed this 6-stage cycle that they went through, seamlessly baseline, analysis, readiness, action evaluation, and back to baseline.
And this cycle was happening super fast.
Right. Incredibly fast. It was like their brains were optimized for making split-second decisions under pressure.
So there was no hesitation, no overthinking.
Exactly. Just pure flow.
And this ties into the research on creativity too, right?
Yeah. There's a specific brainwave signature associated with the creative process.
Alpha waves for that relaxed, focused state where insights can emerge.
Right. And then a burst of gamma waves when that aha moment hits.
Like when Laird came up with the backhand drag.
Exactly. It's like his brain went through that alpha-gamma sequence and boom, innovation.
And we can't forget about the neurochemicals involved in flow.
Yeah, the good stuff. The dopamine, the norepinephrine.
The anandamide, the serotonin. It's like a cocktail of feel-good, focus-enhancing chemicals.
All natural, baby.
Right. None of that artificial stuff. This is the brain's own reward system firing on all cylinders.
And it makes sense, right? It's like the brain is saying, hey, this flow state, it's keeping you alive. It's helping you achieve amazing things. Let's make it pleasurable so you keep doing it.
Exactly. A brilliant evolutionary strategy.
So the question becomes, how do we tap into this incredible state? What are the triggers?
Well, Kotler breaks it down into external and internal triggers.
So starting with the external stuff.
Right. Think about the environment that these action and adventure athletes are operating in.
Like Jeremy Jones snowboarding in Alaska.
Ex- It's constantly changing, unpredictable, full of challenges.
And that kind of rich environment, as Copper calls it seems to be a key ingredient for triggering flow.
Makes sense, right? Your brain has to be constantly engaged, adapting to the novelty and complexity of the situation.
No room for boredom.
And then there's the high consequences factor.
Right. Life or death stakes.
You can't get much more high stakes than that, and that definitely focuses the mind.
And then there's deep embodiment,
Yeah, that feeling of being totally connected to your body, your senses, your movements.
which is crucial for making split-second decisions in those dynamic environments.
So those are some of the external triggers. Now let's move on to the internal ones.
All right, fire away.
Well, first and foremost, clear goals.
Gotta know where you're going.
Exactly. You need that clear objective to focus your attention.
Like in that invisible gorilla experiment.
Oh yeah, the classic example of selective attention.
You're so focused on counting the passes that you miss the gorilla walking right through the scene.
Right. Shows how powerful focused attention can be.
And then immediate feedback,
This is huge, especially in activities like surfing or skateboarding.
where you're constantly adjusting your movements based on the feedback you're getting from the wave or the ramp.
Your brain is getting this constant stream of information and using it to fine-tune your performance.
It's like a feedback loop.
And arguably the most important internal trigger is the challenge skill ratio.
Ah, yes, the sweet spot.
Exactly. It's about finding that perfect balance where the challenge is slightly above your current skill level.
So you're pushing yourself, but not so much that you get overwhelmed.
Right, because if the challenge is too low, you get bored.
And if it's too high, you get anxious.
Exactly. So it's about staying in that flow channel.
And then there's the whole mindset piece.
Yeah, Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset is super relevant here.
Believing in your ability to learn and grow.
Exactly, because if you think your abilities are fixed, you're less likely to embrace challenges.
And challenges are essential for getting into flow.
Totally, because flow is all about pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
It's like that study with the race car drivers,
The ones with a growth mindset were able to learn from their mistakes and bounce back from setbacks.
which allowed them to stay in the flow state longer.
So mindset is crucial.
Absolutely. Now, all this talk about flow and mastery, it makes you wonder about the whole 10,000 hour rule.
Right, the idea that it takes that much deliberate practice to become an expert.
But a lot of these action and adventure athletes, they seem to have achieved mastery through a different path.
Yeah, they're not necessarily clocking in hours of deliberate practice.
It's more about passion exploration, pushing their own limits for the pure joy of it.
And having fun along the way,
Right, exactly. And they're racking up those hours without even thinking about it.
because they're intrinsically motivated.
And this is where Zimbardo's time perspective theory comes in.
Yes, the present versus future orientation.
It seems like flow allows those who are really present-focused to achieve those long-term future goals.
Because the immediate gratification of the experience fuels their continued engagement.
It's like they're turning instant gratification into a powerful motivator.
Really neat trick.
And the emotionally charged experiences of flow, those seem to accelerate learning too.
Right, like McConkie being able to see lines on a mountain that nobody else could see.
It's like flow gives you this unique perspective, this heightened awareness that allows you to make connections faster.
And all of this is happening not just on an individual level, but also in groups.
Right. Group flow.
Keith Sawyer's research on this is fascinating.
He talks about how groups can enter this collective state of flow where their actions and awareness merge.
And there are certain social triggers that facilitate this.
Like shared goals, close listening, a sense of equality within the group.
Yeah, everybody contributing equally, feeling like they have a voice.
And clear communication is crucial too.
Absolutely, everyone needs to be on the same page.
And then there's the shared risk factor,
That one's particularly interesting.
like the Red Bull Air Force flying through Suicide Corner.
Yeah, talk about high stakes.
But they're doing it together as a team, and that shared risk, it seems to create a powerful bond.
A sense of trust and interdependence.
And it's not just in these extreme scenarios, even something like Camp 4 in Yosemite.
That legendary climbing spot.
It fostered a sense of group flow among the climbers who gathered there.
Because they were all pursuing the same challenging goals in the same environment.
And those shared experiences, they help to validate the sometimes surreal nature of flow.
Right. When you're having those crazy heightened experiences, it's reassuring to know that others are feeling it too.
It makes it feel more real, more grounded.
And then there's the role of action sports films.
like The Search for Animal Chin.
That movie had a huge impact on skateboarding culture.
Totally. It created a shared visual language, a set of references that everyone could relate to.
And that accelerated the progression of the sport because everyone was building on the same foundation.
It's like group flow on a larger scale.
Exactly. A whole subculture united by these shared experiences and aspirations.
And we can't forget about the link between flow and creativity.
Yeah, it's a powerful connection.
It seems like the creative act itself, with its inherent risk-taking and pattern recognition, can actually trigger flow.
Because those activities release dopamine, which gets the flow state going.
And the free-riding movement in skiing and snowboarding is a great example of this.
Yeah, it shifted the focus from just completing the run to expressing yourself, finding new creative lines.
And flow reinforced those creative choices because it felt good to push those boundaries to do something different.
It's like the brain was rewarding them for being innovative.
And you could even argue that the same principles apply to entrepreneurship.
Oh, absolutely. The willingness to take risks, to try something new, to break the mold.
That's what drives innovation in any field.
And flow can be a powerful fuel for that creative fire.
But we have to be honest about the potential downsides of flow, too.
Right, it's not all sunshine and roses.
The neurochemicals involved, they can be addictive.
Yeah, and that drive to experience those peak states, it can lead to some unhealthy behaviors
Like the ladder of escalating risk,
where you keep pushing the limits further and further.
even when it's no longer safe.
Because that feeling of invincibility and flow,
Hmm.
it can cloud your judgment.
And we've seen this play out tragically with some prominent athletes.
Yeah, pushing too far and paying the ultimate price.
And even when it doesn't end in tragedy, there's the potential for burnout.
Yeah, that feeling of emptiness when you can no longer access those flow states as easily.
Or when you get injured and can't do the activities that used to bring you flow.
It can be a real struggle to find that same level of fulfillment in other areas of life.
And Kotler even mentions some athletes experiencing PTSD-like symptoms after retiring from their sports.
Missing that rush, that intensity.
It's a reminder that flow is a powerful force and it needs to be respected.
Absolutely. We can't just chase those peak experiences without considering the potential consequences.
So what does the future hold for flow?
Well, Kotler talks about this next generation of athletes like Tom Schar.
Yeah, who are doing insane things at younger and younger ages.
It's like the baseline of what's possible is constantly shifting.
Because they're growing up in a world where those limits are being pushed all the time.
They're seeing these amazing feats and thinking, hey, I can do that too.
And technology is playing a role in this too.
Absolutely, like Hugh Hare's work with bionic prosthetics.
It's incredible. People with disabilities are now able to achieve things that were once considered impossible.
And exoskeletons are another area where technology is enhancing human potential.
It's like we're merging with machines to push our physical and mental limits even further.
And Felix Baumgartner's supersonic freefall from space.
That was a mind-blowing example of what's possible when you combine human courage with cutting-edge technology.
And the data from that jump, it has implications for all sorts of things like space exploration and emergency evacuation.
It's like flow is taking us to new frontiers, both literally and figuratively.
And the principles of flow, they're not just relevant to extreme sports.
Right. Kotler connects them to bigger societal challenges.
Like the need for creativity, collaboration, and motivation to solve global issues.
And if you look at successful companies, the ones that have been around for decades,
They've all had to adapt to change, to innovate, to overcome obstacles.
which are all skills that are honed through engaging with flow.
So maybe the key to a thriving society is to cultivate a culture of flow.
I like that idea.
A world where people are encouraged to find their flow, to pursue their passions, to push their own boundaries.
So to wrap things up, what have we learned about flow from these amazing athletes?
Well, it's clear that flow is a real phenomenon with a neurological and chemical basis.
It's not just some new agey concept.
It's a state that can be accessed and cultivated intentionally.
And it has the potential to unlock incredible levels of performance, creativity, and fulfillment.
But it's important to approach flow with respect.
Right, to be mindful of the potential downsides, to avoid getting caught in that cycle of escalating risks.
To find that balance between pushing limits and staying safe.
So for our listeners out there, the ones who are already pushing their own boundaries in their respective fields,
What can they take away from all this?
I think the big takeaway is that flow is not just for extreme athletes.
It's for anyone who wants to achieve mastery in their chosen domain.
And the principles we've discussed today, those can be applied to any area of life.
So if you're a scientist, an artist, an entrepreneur, whatever your passion is,
You can use these insights to tap into your own flow state to unlock your full potential.
To achieve things you never thought possible.
And maybe even change the world in the process.
Now that's a thought to leave you with.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep pushing, and keep flowing.
See ya!